just said going live, so
Yeah, I do.
hopefully they know that.
All right, should we just go ahead and start
Yeah.
then? Okay, it's 5:15, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'm Byron Giesler. Welcome to the Historic Preservation Review Board regular meeting. This is a citizen board appointed by the Town Council to interpret and uphold the Historic Preservation Ordinance, which protects the Historic District of Abingdon, which has been designated the Old and Historic District. Our aim on this board is to provide a positive bridge between the property owners of the district and the design review process. So we welcome you to today's meeting. We appreciate your interest and we encourage public participation in our meeting. Your comments are important to our decision-making process. Anyone addressing the board, if you'd please approach the podium and identify yourself by giving us your oh. Now can you hear me? Huh.
No.
Barely.
Can you step back there and just ask him if he can turn the volume up on the...
You all don't want me to say that whole thing again, do you? Welcome, and we're glad you're here. Is that any better? No. Hello?
No.
You can point it down like that.
Is this one any better? All right, give us just a second if you could.
Just a little speed bump.
Very good, very good. You know, for 10 years, every meeting we have 4 people in the room, and then tonight, what do we have? Hello? Is this any better?
Might just have to yell.
What?
Can you check if that microphone works for the presentation? Just, can you check, yeah. Just say something into it.
What, in the microphone?
Can you all hear that? Okay, well, the first half of our meeting is actually one sign and a door, so maybe we'll just have to yell a little bit in the first half, but our presenter will be at that front podium. So our presenter you should be able to hear for everyone else who came here. So, Gabe, I don't know if you want to come back.
Yeah, he's working on it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll try to speak up. Is that better? Can you hear me okay? Yeah. All right, well, welcome to the Historic Preservation Review Board meeting. We're glad you're here. When you come up to speak, if you would introduce yourself by giving us your name and your address, that would be very helpful. So the first item on the agenda is the roll call.
Mr. Boyd,
Here.
Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Mrs. Hartshorn, Mrs. White, and Mr. Giesler.
Here. All right, so next is the approval of the minutes from the January 4, 2023 regular meeting. Does anyone have any comments or questions regarding those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve them as submitted?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Giesler.
Aye. All right, the next is the approval of the January 18, 2023 special called meeting minutes. Are there any questions or comments regarding those minutes? Not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll motion it.
Second?
Aye.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Boyd? Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
And Mr. Geisler.
Aye. All right, the next is a certificate of appropriateness with regard to the Nature Conservancy.
So yes, the Nature Conservancy and Matthew Bundy as their representative has requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness to replace the existing metal rear door with a glass panel door. The property is located at 146 East Main Street. The property is within the Old and Historic District, Subdistrict 1. Some background, there are currently 3 basement, According to Place and Time, Volume 2, this is the second structure to be built on this lot. St. Thomas Episcopal Church built the current structure in 1908 and was used as a rectory until 1942. Since that time, numerous individuals have owned the structure. In April 20th, 2022, HPRB approved the enlargement of a rear shed roof structure covering the rear exterior door facing Troopers Alley. Then the proposed new shed-style overhang was proposed to match the existing materials, color, and style. The standing seam metal roof was a grayish-black, and the support beams, along with all the other wooden elements, were painted white. The shed-style roof was proposed to be extended to be flush with the wall to the east of the overhang. The overhang was also extended west to cover the new incoming electrical service. Then, on December 7th of 2022, the HPRB approved the replacement of the existing basement-level windows and widening of the window openings. The proposed replacements were to be 1/1 Anderson 400 series double-hung sash windows and to expand the openings. The frame and panel will be wooden and painted white. Over the windows, a full aluminum screen, pre-finished white, will be set into the expanded opening. However, the representatives have informed staff the windows will not be enlarged but replaced with similar newer windows of the same size. Staff findings, the applicant is proposing to replace the existing metal door painted white with a full glass panel door. All hardware for the proposed door would be metal and pre-finished in a Duronic finish. Both the existing door and proposed door have a pin pad. The only new piece of hardware would be the metal pull bar. Staff is certain the proposed door to be replaced is not original to the structure. Neither the existing or proposed door are constructed of traditional materials or exhibit a design appropriate to the architectural style and period of the building concerned.
Okay, Mr. Bundy?
Well, I think he pretty much said it. There's an existing, pretty rough-looking residential style metal door that's white, scratched up and rusted. They want to replace it. They're, as I said last time, in our last meeting, their primary objective with things, as much as possible, is to get as much light in the basement for employees working down there as possible. So that's why they're proposing the full glass, aluminum, metal and glass door to maximize the amount of light that gets in there. So that's their main objective. And then we're hoping, since the existing door is metal, that's the like material for like material of metal, and so that's why we'd like to use the metal door. I mean, that's our reasoning.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Bundy? So clearly the existing door is not the original door.
Yeah. Now, is that the door to the stairwell, or is that the door that is in the back?
This is the door to the back. This is the one that you would be replacing that you said you would. This is the one that's over the overhang. So.
Right. Yeah. Yes, it's a solid steel commercial kind of door.
So of course, normally we would not allow this kind of door, but you already have a non-conforming door there. All right, any questions, comments? If not, is there a motion?
I move we approve the application as submitted.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
and Mr. Geisler.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next is it any better? Oh, it is, okay. I can quit yelling? Okay.
Just stay close.
Okay. Next is the Abington Farmers Market.
Yeah, so David McLeish Jr. of Abington Farmers Market has requested approval of a certificate of appropriateness for a sign. The proposed signage will be a wall sign and be made of mesh material. The property is located at 100 Reamsburg Drive, and the property is within the Old and Historic District, Sub-District 1. Some background for you. The parcel 100 Reamsburg Drive sits on a parcel that's zoned for two different zones. The eastern half is located in the OH District, while the western half is zoned B3 or Central Business. Currently, there is an existing freestanding sign located near the intersection of Cumming Street and Reamsburg Drive. So some staff findings. The proposed sign will be hung in the central portion of the farmer's market and be made of a mesh material. The sign measures 6 feet by 24 feet, equaling 144 square feet. Primarily, the sign will be a dark green color with an interior golden border. At each corner of the interior golden border is an ornate design. Within the golden border is gold-colored lettering, primarily in the left and central sections of the sign. The right-hand section has a square with a white background. Within the white square is black lettering and a design of various fruits and vegetables. A majority of the sign will be located in the portion of the OH district, with a small piece of the sign located in B3 zone of the parcel. Signs of this size have been placed at this location before for special events for a specific period of time, such as January jams and such.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Dave McLeish. I'm the manager of the Abington Farmers Market at 100 Remsburg Drive in Abington. I do have a sample of the mesh material that the sign would be made of.
Could you pass that around?
I sure can.
Thank you.
So you can see that it's a silk screen process that goes on it. Jerry Signs is the one that made the Thursday Jams one that was hanging there. For us, it acts as a sunscreen for the vendors. It keeps the sun off their product and out of their eyes. When the Thursday Jams one came down, we noticed it made a big difference. So, and that's the design that Jerry Signs came up with me.
Okay, does anyone have any questions or comments?
I don't understand how it's a wall sign.
It's actually, there's two cables running across there, and it hangs on the cables off a ground.
Not on a wall.
Not on a wall, no.
Yeah, but that's how it that's how we were looking at it as a wall sign, because it'd be part of that imaginary wall in a sense, and this is where it would be right here.
Yeah.
So we have size restrictions for permanent signs that this would vastly exceed. Is this going to be a temporary sign, or?
Well, it's acting as a windscreen and a sign. I mean, a sunscreen and a sign. So there used to be a just black mesh curtain there at one point also.
The struggle we're having is that we have had before us awnings on other businesses, and we don't allow the signage part to be in excess of our square foot requirement, which is 4 square feet. But we have allowed signs that are not permanent, that are larger, that for several months, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. So the problem that we'll run into is if we can't approve a permanent sign of this size without opening up other locations in town to having large signs on a permanent basis like that, which is not allowed in the historic district.
I mean, our main season that this would be helpful would be like April through probably September, something in that range. We have fewer vendors this time of year and in the fall.
Well, I think there is some leniency for us to approve a temporary sign if it's only going to be up there for a specific time. But if it's going to be a permanent sign, the mesh part could exceed that, but the actual signage on it would have to be, you know, pretty close to our guidelines. So that's the problem we're having. Does anyone see this differently?
I do. Just because the building or the farmer's market is, I mean, it's hardly a building. And it's not historic. It's unique in the town as far as within the district. I guess I don't really have any problem with the sign, and if it could be construed as temporary, if it's up for 6 or whatever months, April to,
About 6 months or so.
I mean, I'd be comfortable with that.
I'd be perfectly comfortable with that.
Temporarily signed, yes,
Right.
I would be comfortable with that, but, you know, as far as the guidelines with, as what Byram said, year-round, you know, we just can't kind of be unfair.
Right.
The problem we
to
have
everyone
is,
else.
the second somebody wants to do something, the first thing they do is go around and find other examples of
Right.
where we've let it before, and then
Exactly.
it becomes a problem.
Exactly.
But as long as it's going to be a temporary sign, I think,
Yeah, we could definitely do, 6 months.
okay. All right,
It'll just help it last longer.
are we ready? Is there a motion?
The only thing I'd suggest adding to your motion is if you're gonna allow him to do it every year for 6 months, that you just say it's an annual 6-month approval. That way he doesn't have to come back to you
Right.
next year.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
All right, are we ready for a motion?
I'll motion.
Move that we approve it as a temporary,
Yeah, we-
temporary annual sign for 6 months.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
and Mr. Geisler.
Aye. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All right, now I believe we're ready to move on to the Valley Street traffic calming, portion. So who,
I'll start it off.
okay, Leona?
Hi, Betsy. Oh, trying to get the parking, probably. I'm Diana, for those of you who don't know me, and we're gonna just kind of kick this off with a couple of slides so we can talk about what's gonna happen tonight, and then we'll bring everybody up. This is a public input session, so could you go to the first slide for me? So we're glad to see you all here tonight. Why we held it with the HPRB meeting is that this street is within the old and historic district. HPRB is not voting or taking action on this tonight. So their purview, and if you go online and look at what they look at, it's things that they already looked at tonight. So they look at structures, they look at design, they look at landscaping. So the other question that has come up several times to us is, why isn't there a final document, or can we see something, or, you know, where's this document? Tonight is really about you all looking at what the consultants have started the conversation on. So there isn't a final document yet. The town has not decided in the direction that it's going. There's the joke from earlier, the bumps or lumps or speed humps. We have not made any decisions at this time. So tonight is really a session for you all to listen and provide your input. You go to the next slide. So the goals for the evening, the first one is listening. So we have the police department who's gonna come up first. The consultants, RK&K, have all been working on reviewing Valley for the better part of 2 years. They've done traffic studies, they've gone through the engineering. So our goal tonight is really to listen. The second goal for you all is to contribute. So we want you to be involved, we want you to provide public comments if you feel comfortable. If not, obviously, we're all available, so you can email us and call us after the meeting. Another item to be aware of is really staying on topic. I'm sure there's a lot of transportation and road things that you all would like to talk about, but tonight it's really Valley Street. So try to stay on topic, and I think that will help it go. And then the conclusion. Tonight, you won't walk away with an answer of what the town is doing. That's not what we're here for tonight. We're here to hear what the consultants have to say, hear what the police department has to say, and then hear from all of you. So we welcome you, and we'll kick it off to our chief, Holbrook. I don't know if you want to.
Good evening. Thank you all, and thank you all for showing up this evening to listen a little bit. I'll start off by saying I'm not the traffic engineer. He's sitting behind me. I'm just the police chief that works in traffic a lot. Throughout my career, it's been a lot in traffic, and in Abingdon we have a lot of traffic crashes. But with that, I've received complaints about speeding on Valley Street over the past couple of years or more coming in. And anytime we look at complaints, you kind of want to pull the data together. So what I just want to talk about some of the data I pulled together just to segue into what led to the traffic study, and therefore we'll go from there. So first I took a snippet from the Virginia Department of Transportation. That's the average annual daily traffic. So that's an average. The Virginia Department of Transportation does a yearly study where they put out traffic monitoring devices, those tubes that go across the road, and then they count the number of vehicles that go across. And then they take a average throughout the week. The assumption there is that on weekend there's less travel than during the weekdays, so that's why it's an average. But I wanted to compare that with Main Street so you get an idea of what kind of traffic numbers we have on Valley Street. And if you'll notice, their 2022 data is not out yet, so we'll go with the latest, which is 2021. Between the intersections of Russell Road and Court Street, there was 8,500 cars a day that travel on Valley Street. Compare that to Main Street. Main Street has about 10,000 cars a day. So it's pretty significant travel on Valley Street, but it is kind of a main thoroughfare. It is the parallel road for Main Street. And you can see the numbers as they go through. 2020 was a slight decline. As you'll see in the crash data, there was a slight decline in crashes as well in 2020. But overall, 2015 and 2016, you had over 9,000 cars on Valley Street during that time. So then what I did next is the police department purchased a Jamar Black Cat 2 radar traffic recorder. Basically, it was a little box that hang on a utility pole, and it uses radar to count the number of vehicles that pass by. It also tells me the speed and throws out some data with that. I set it out 4 times, and you can see the number of vehicles we analyzed. The first time was 34,000, then 45,000, 17,000, and 54,000. And I would put it out until the battery life would expire. These were placed out, 3 times were placed out right next to the library crosswalk. There's a utility pole right there that I put it out. And then 1 time was placed out right in front of the Labyrinth Park. You can see the average speeds were pretty consistent at 28 miles an hour all 4 times that I put it out. The fastest speed there averaged between 55 to the one fastest 73. The problem with the equipment is it does not distinguish between emergency vehicles running lights and siren or normal vehicles. It counts every single call or every single car or vehicle that goes through there. So I don't know if that 73 was a motorist going pretty fast or if it was an emergency vehicle. The enforceable violations for this was anything that's 10 miles an hour or greater. So 35 or greater is what I put there. So you can see the first time I put it out, you had 1,129 enforceable violations, and you can see through this last time that I put it out was 1,701. The 85th percentile, that's 85% of the cars were traveling that speed or lower. So the 85th percentile was 31.6 on 3 times, and then 32.2 on that 1 time. So basically, with the 85th percentile, it's what the traffic engineers, my friends behind me, generally use when they're doing a lot of traffic studies to see what the largest portion of vehicles are doing on the roadway. Here's some of the crash data. Now, my crash data is going to be a little bit different than the engineer's data. I have the luxury of having all the data in-house with access to it. I can look through it. I can pull out the minor crashes that may not necessarily have been submitted to the state. And I can pull out some of the intersections that may have been marked as Russell Road, but happened at the Russell Road Valley Street intersection, and other areas like that. And as you can see, last year, 2022, we had 13 total crashes, 6 of which were in 2 parked vehicles. 2 were vehicle ran off the road, 1 animal, and then 4 others were motor vehicle and transport. So basically, they crashed into another moving vehicle. And you can kind of look through there.
Was that, excuse me for interrupting.
Sure.
What was the animal, do you know? Was that a deer, dog, cat?
I didn't
What,
look
do
to
you
see what
know?
the animal was in that situation. We had significant deer involved crashes throughout that area, and even on Walden Road. In fact, a deer hit my wife's car not too long ago on Walden Road, so it's,
Gotcha.
yeah, they're out there pretty significantly. And then in 2021, the pedestrian incident was at the crosswalk down on East Valley. It's near the, say, Watauga Medical, is it still Watauga? It's on the east side of town at that crosswalk. And then the other pedestrian one in 2020 was in a crosswalk as well. I think that was at the Valley and Pecan Street, or Valley and Pecan Street crosswalk. So that just gives you a quick idea of where the crashes are happening and what's causing them. There's our total crashes throughout the year to give you a comparison of what we've had. In 2022, we've had 302 total crashes in our town. And if you go back, we've had 13 on Valley Street. So roughly around 4% of our crashes are on Valley Street. 2020, we had a significant reduction in crashes. I would assume that that's probably because the amount of folks who are working home and not getting out and driving around as much. So if you reduce the traffic on our streets, naturally you'll probably reduce the crashes as well. And that data goes all the way back to 2010, so you can get a good idea of how the crashes have come and gone. Overall, we're not doing too bad recently, reducing those. So I took that data. The traffic data recorder also tells me the times when folks are exceeding the speed limit. It gives me a good time frame of when to be out there, when to put officers out there. So we have done some enforcement. Of course, enforcement's limited to the number of officers I have overall, the amount of time that they can spend there, calls of service, and everything else that pulls us away. In addition, this is just what we've done as far as enforcement. This is not the time that we've spent sitting out there looking for violations or just being seen out there. So in 2022, we stopped 102 vehicles. Of those, 65 warnings, 38 summonses, and 3 arrests. In 21, we stopped 98 vehicles with 59 warnings and 39 summonses and 1 arrest. And it kind of gives you a breakdown on the chart of when we were out there. This past February, we really hit it hard. We put a Facebook post out saying we were going to be out there. We're going to be, some overtime monies was allocated to it, and we really went after it. We had 42 traffic stops just in that month alone, in hopes to make a little bit of difference on there. So that's basically all I have. Is there any questions you all have for me before I hand it over to the engineers and their study?
It's really, really interesting, surprising. All right, any questions? Thank you very much.
Sure.
Button to the right advances.
Hello.
My name's Jason Williams, I'm with RK&K.
Do you want to stand and face them? I mean, you could stand on the other side of this podium if.
We'll see how it goes here. All right.
If you just want to flip that microphone around.
Go here.
Yeah, just
that?
flip that around
Sure.
and then you can, yes.
It's less nervous when I was young. At least I could see if they throw anything at me. Anyway, thank you all for having me. My name is Jason Williams. I'm with RK&K Civil Engineers, and we're performing a traffic study on Valley Street. So, pretty simple presentation here. We looked at the corridor between Russell and Walden. Looking at the crash history, the chief went over some of this, but a couple of things I want to highlight about the crashes are most of them are happening during the daylight hours, when the surface conditions are dry, and over 80% of them were noted where speeding was not a contributing factor. So there are 2 fatalities that have happened in the last few years. One thing to note about those is I think it was noted that both of those were single vehicle and most likely a medical incident, not necessarily the corridor contributing there. This slide here shows where the accidents are happening along the corridor. So they're spread out fairly well. You can see the gray dots are just property damage. The colored ones are more severe accidents with injuries or fatalities. So looking at your street widths, this is the pavement width in the corridor, ranging anywhere around 35, 36 feet. One of the things for the group here is that a normal travel lane is between 10 and 12 feet wide, and a parking lane for a vehicle is usually planned at 7 or 8 feet wide. So as we get a little bit farther on in the slide, you'll see some of the recommendations. Those widths certainly accommodate travel ways plus parking on the sides. You've got, I believe, 8 marked crosswalks in the corridor. A couple of those are bulb outs, which we consider a bulb out where you're narrowing the travel way as sort of a traffic calming measure. A little bit of the speed data here. This is data from the town, so that's nothing new there. We did also take a look at some street light data. So street light is a service that we have available that is tracking cell phones. So it looks at the folks traveling in the corridor. It's anonymous data that we get through VDOT, but just demonstrates what the speeds are in the corridor, sort of a check to what the town has already provided on that. And I will add on to what the chief said. When we look at traffic speeds and things like that, most of the time we are designing and analyzing to that 85th percentile. So, and that's somewhere in the 25, 28, 32 range, depending on which study you're looking at. I didn't like to see the 73 on there. That was a little scary. So just a summary of some of the features out there. You do have some high visibility crosswalks, some of the signage in the road, the stop signs, the yield signs, the supplemental speeding fine, that can help to reduce some of the speeds. And also just vehicles being parked out there gives you a visual perception that the roadway is more narrow and hopefully slows some folks down. As we looked at the corridor, we did note a few of the traffic signs out there are not up to the current specifications. The state law is not that you have to stop for a pedestrian in a crosswalk. You have to yield to the pedestrian in the crosswalk. So that's one of our recommendations, that some of those signs be switched out. Probably what you all are interested in are some of our recommendations. So we have a toolbox here of potential traffic calming treatments that can happen in the corridor. One of those, top of the list here, is marking the on-street parking. That's going to provide a white line on the edge delineating parking from the travel way. Mini roundabouts. Some of you may be wondering what a mini roundabout is. I've got a couple slides on that. Narrowing the travel way by striking shoulders in the median where no parking is allowed or no traveling is allowed, just narrowing the perceived width of your travel way. There are a couple digital speed radar signs out there. There may be more opportunities where those can be put in place. any narrowing devices, so crosswalk refuges, curb extensions, things like that. Again, we're just talking about narrowing the travelway to make you slow down as you approach those things. As well as refreshing some of the crosswalk markings. Some of those have probably been out there a while, making those higher visibility. Couple of things that are in the toolbox that aren't quite as high on the recommendation list. I won't dive into all those, but chicanes are where you drive through a road and it's curvy. The street is either marked or put in curb islands to so you're weaving through that. Rumble strips, certainly slow down across rumble strips, but they make noise. And on-street bike lanes, you know, that's certainly a potential, but that's also going to take away parking, and having parking right up against where the bike lanes, it's a little bit dangerous anyway. So let's see, and any vertical devices, speed humps, lumps, tables, whatever, those certainly cause you to slow down, but they definitely present a lot of maintenance issues with snow removal, things like that. All right, here's what your corridor could look like with the edge lines striped out. Basically narrowing up the travel lanes and having a dedicated lane to park vehicles. Actually, one of the folks with the town mentioned that as we enter into an era of newer vehicles, a lot of the vehicles see these edge lines and help keep your vehicle in the lane. And based on the traffic data, there are a lot of vehicles that are running into parked cars. So this is certainly high on the list for our recommendations. Looking at many roundabouts, this is a roundabout that fits within your existing right-of-way more or less. It's not as big of a footprint as you see with a lot of the newer roundabouts, but the way this works is you've got to slow down to enter the roundabout and yield to traffic that's in there, but the way the median islands in the middle are set up, that a larger truck actually is designed to run over those in the middle, so it bumps up over them. A tractor trailer certainly couldn't navigate that going around the circle like it's laid out. So these are nice options, slows folks down, helps pedestrians cross, but they're also a little bit more expensive treatment. So, and these are just a couple pictures, one that's in design and one that's in place. All right, hopping over to some curb extensions. You've got a couple of these in the corridor. There may be some more opportunities where these would be a good idea. Could narrow up your travelways a bit and provide a safer crossing for pedestrians, a shorter crossing for pedestrians. Just another example of some curb bulb outs, narrowing up the travelways. And this is probably hard to see a little bit, but this is what it could look like on Valley Street with a mini roundabout dropped in and some edge line striped. All right. Existing speed limit signs, you got a lot of them. There's 16 of them out there. So there's no doubt that folks are seeing what the speed limit is out there, and a couple of those are the digital speed radar signs, as you can see here. This just a nice, pretty sketch of how wide the corridor is and what it would look like if you did stripe in those edge lines. You got your 11-foot travelways and 7-foot parking lanes there. We can walk through the corridor a little bit. We did provide some recommendations, and these are primarily the striping of the edge lines, as well as improving some of the pedestrian bulb out crosswalks. Refreshing the one here, Reservoir. Looking at the one at College, when you design a crosswalk, you don't want your pedestrians walking right into traffic. And as is shown here, so we would propose to move this one over a little bit and provide some of those bump outs, as you saw in some of the examples. Refreshing the markings as we head on up toward Pecan. Same at Court. And it's probably a little bit hard to see, but you can see how the edge lines would be striped in and how the parking would potentially look along the edges. Another relocation of a bulb out just down from Tanner. I believe is that the one near the old medical office? Is that where that one is? Currently, same situation. You've got a crosswalk that goes into a driveway across the street. Preferably, you would like those pedestrians to cross from sidewalk to sidewalk. This may be my last slide here. This is basically just shows the crash modification factors that we would expect, some guidance from VDOT when you implement these potential recommendations, what the percentage of crash reductions could be. So, 37% for your high-vis crosswalks and your pedestrian crossings, and then doing your edge lines plus or minus 15%. So, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I guess questions? It's
A question on, could you explain the distinction between yielding and stopping at a pedestrian crossing?
It's just the state law.
What's the difference?
I think the point he's making is that the sign should say you have to yield as opposed to stop, because that's what's required under the law.
Right. Those are the standard signage is based on the state law, and I guess.
That you stop, I mean, you have to stop
Yeah.
if you don't want to hit somebody.
I don't know how that's enforced. Yeah.
Other questions?
Well, you have a question, do we have to come up there, or can we sit right here? You know I don't like that.
Well, can you all hear okay if they don't come up, or would you prefer that? Why don't you come on up? That might be better.
We can hear you. I just want to hear it, I just want to ask a couple questions,
Okay.
okay? Is it possible to have lights on crosswalks, on the sides? Something to light it up, because it's dark right there on Valley where we're at.
So like the barter, you mean, like where you?
Well, not, just maybe on the edges.
Just a street light?
Yeah, some kind of light that would be, and another one was, is there a restriction of the size of vehicles, trucks that can be coming down Valley or say a one-way street? Is there, what size trucks are allowed to come through there, like tractor trailers?
I don't know that there's any restriction there.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know in the residential area, if it's a restriction. No?
I mean, I would,
The reason I'm saying is because when they come down that one-way street, they're over in the yards. They're so big they can't even make the turn. So I didn't know if that's a restriction.
I mean, I know some scenarios like that, it's signed that it's not recommended for larger vehicles, but.
Okay, that was my question.
Could you go back just for a minute to that slide that you showed right at Tanner?
Can I go past?
Yeah, at the intersection, that
That,
one.
yeah, okay.
At Tanner, so you're proposing to move the existing sidewalk further down from where it is now.
Just the crosswalk, yes.
That speed limit sign, which we would love to see with your speed, they've got one in Damascus recently they put up. Where would that be? On that picture,
To the left there.
by the crosswalk? Oh, it would go, okay, before Tanner, because what I've noticed, because I live between Fort and Tanner, a lot of vehicles turn on Tanner, they race down from the light, as you will have, and they turn on Tanner. So it would be great to get the maximum volume with that speed signs for the town manager Cochran have been put in the budget this year. Purchase three. And then we can set them up with flashlights if they're at certain speed over. They'll stay on. And then it's also the package where it records the ticket as well. All that.
Bill Dayton, live at 133 Valley Street, West Valley, right behind this building. And one thing, talk about maintenance of the speed humps. I think the speed humps are the way to go. Absolutely. I think all of this is just gonna make it more possible for parked cars to get hit rather than actually slowing down the traffic. You have maintenance of all these stripes and all these, the striping and everything versus 2 or 3 speed humps, you know, scattered throughout. I think your maintenance might be about the same if you do the speed humps properly. The other thing I was thinking about, let's see. I'll think of it in a minute.
Well, it's interesting to note the speed tables are, you mentioned snowplows. Snowplows can go over speed tables. So,
And they do it all the time,
Yeah.
from Chicago. And we've done a lot of it.
but if nothing else, the striping along the sides would to narrow the road would definitely help. Because there's not, we're right between Hannah and Ford and there's nothing there.
The wider and straighter it is, the more comfortable folks feel going fast.
Well, and it's kind of at a downhill slope. So before, I don't know that some of them intentionally do it. They're just going forward.
I think that the signs that alert people to exactly how fast are going are helpful. I also live right behind this building. We've lived there for 3 years. In 2022, we had 2 parked cars hit. The most recent one at the end of December, my husband was in the car parked. He had not opened his door yet. It was hit hard enough that the car that hit him flipped. And it was very scary and very destructive. Prior to that, we have lost 3 mirrors on cars. And when somebody hits your mirror on Valley Street, they don't stop. They just keep going. And then, you know, one of those mirrors was a truck with towing capabilities, and that was a $2,500 repair. So, thank goodness for insurance, but I think the problem is that people get on Valley Street and it's a straight shot and they go. And so anything that could visually slow them down and remind them how fast they're going would be very helpful.
I'd like to say, in 2022, in November, one of our parked cars in front of our house on Valley between Fort and Tanner was smashed into so hard that there was a total vehicle, and I believe my house would have been hit if my daughter's car had not taken the brunt. In addition, though, to that, we use the public bus from the school, my daughter's elementary school, and it is a very common occurrence for the school bus to stop to let her out, and people are passing the school bus, and the school bus has to lay the horn on in front of my house. So, there's enough space in front of my house. Obviously, we used to park our car there, but we don't now after the total. But people will, go around, so if somebody is stopping for the bus, you'll see these drivers kind of like do a zippy around so that they don't get stopped by the bus. And I know it's a pain to get stopped by a bus, but there's like children on the bus. And so there've been, more times than I can count that the school bus is being passed in front of our house.
Before we go forward, these are really good comments, and these meetings are recorded, and it's also live on the internet, so it would be helpful if when you speak, you could come up and we could turn the microphone around and introduce yourself, and we could get the benefit of your comment, and everyone could hear it, and we could have a record of it. So let's do that if we could. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Greg Lilly, and I'm at 244 East Valley. I think there's 2 issues, and I'm not sure if some of these initiatives will do. One of them is distracted driving. We can look down from our 2nd floor and see into cars as they go by. I would say 80% of the people we look at have their cell phones out and are texting or who knows what they're doing. I've looked at some of the data that Chief Holbrook had about speeding. Yes, your average is low, but you have to look at more than the average. Because there are 2 times during the day that Valley Street just about stops. So you're averaging in these rush hour times when you've got cars lined up going 5 miles per hour. I would suggest people walk Valley, go to the library. You can't cross the road. People do not stop for you. And if you do, you've got to run. And the other thing is, February 2022, that data shows that there's a lot more speeding going on. It's just we don't have people to enforce it. We saw the numbers jump, and that's because they were out there. Now, when you've got 5 in a month, and you've got 30-some in another month, that's just enforcement.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kenton Thompson, 301 East Valley. You know, I would second some of the comments of the last gentleman, because I think there's a large disparity of the speed on Valley, both in where you take those speed readings on Valley and also the time. Because, you know, like you mentioned, during rush hour, there's so much traffic and so many people turning that, you know, that speed is significantly lower. But, you know, I know just from observation, you know, some of those times of day where the traffic is lighter, the average speed is significantly higher. So, you know, and I mean, I've even used, you know, my own device to, you know, to try and approximate the speed of those cars. And, you know, when it's not rush hour, you know, the average speed is, you know, close to 10 miles an hour faster. So, you know, I don't know how much that data that you have is in a form that can be stratified, you know, by time or location. I know it sounded like, you know, most of the readings have been taken over near the library, you know, more in the center of Valley. And, you know, I live on the east side of Valley, and I see people all the time coming up from Hutton or down in Walden. And as they approach Court Street, they start to slow down. You know, so as they're going up that hill, you know, they slow down because they know they're getting into the heart of town, and there's more enforcement up there. There's more police presence. There's also more pedestrians, you know, just overall. But, you know, there are a lot of pedestrians over on that east side of town, including the one incident that happened about 1.5 years ago of a pedestrian being struck by a car and knocked out of the crosswalk. I mean, it happened one door over from my house, and, you know, I got to witness the whole thing. So, you know, it's a significant problem because there's a lot of doctors' offices over on that stretch over there, and their parking lots across the street. So you know, a lot of their patients are having to walk across that road, and the cars don't stop. You know, so we've got a lot of patients, a lot of them with mobility issues, playing chicken with the traffic out there.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. I'm John Lagarde. My wife and I live at 179 Valley Street in the heart of the historic district, right where Cummings tees to Valley. We're on the north side of the street. We've got a wraparound porch, and we look over top of the stoplight. Okay, Valley Street is a nightmare. We really, we enjoy sitting on our porch, okay? We like traffic, but when you see people going 40 miles an hour, okay, and paying no attention whatsoever, and like somebody said, I can look down and I can see every other Tom, Dick, and Harry with a phone in their ear, okay, texting. Enforcement is the answer, and I understand Chief has got the data, but we've got a driveway right beside my house, Chief, and you guys can slip in there, okay, and you can hide in there, because we can slip out the back while you slip out the front. Okay. You had mentioned, sir, believe crosswalks at College and Reservoir. Those are on either side, okay, of where Cummings tees to Valley. And if we could highlight those crosswalks, okay, a little bit, I think you would see a reduction in speed going both ways, going east and west, if you could improve both of those crosswalks. The last comment I have, when folks are coming down 19 from Lebanon and they want to get to I-81, where are the vast majority of them going? They're turning onto Russell Road off of Porterfield Highway. They're driving to Valley. They're turning left on Valley Street in order to get to exit 17. And it's jammed up all the time. So one thought that I have, there is a sign out there on 19 that says Interstate 81 straight ahead, okay, rather than turning left. You know where I'm talking about? All right. But that sign that says straight ahead is right at the intersection. So no trucker, nobody has a chance to make a different decision if their GPS is saying going left or going left. That's the shortest way to the interstate. We need to get those people off of Valley Street, get them to Main, and get them to a new exit 14. We got a beautiful new exit 14, and get them off Valley Street. Thank you all for listening.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Laura Blevins, 289 Valley Street Northwest, west side of Cummings, closer to Russell Road. I walk that street every day going to work. I really would like an extra crosswalk between Russell Road and Reservoir Street. You'll often, if you're driving down Valley Street, you're gonna see me between 8:30 and noon and 5:30 and 6 o'clock, and it's a little hairy out there because people don't stop, and they are traveling that section. Chief, I would like to see some recognition of what the numbers are on traveling Russell Road to Cummings Street. You had it from Russell Road all the way out to Court Street, and I think that there's gonna be even a larger number of traffic in that one section. So anything that will help us slow people down and make people stop for people walking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, nice to see a lot of familiar faces here. Betsy, in particular, I remember you've been such a proponent of kind of maintaining some sense of decorum in Abingdon that made me so proud to live here. I have to tell you all though, I lived away for many years in downtown Washington, D.C. Doesn't get a lot busier than there. But the traffic flow patterns, the, in fact, my car's been hit, not once, but twice, hit and run on Valley Street, has really bothered me. And I don't wanna point fingers at, anyone. I just wanna point out a couple of things. What I notice as a difference between when I grew up here, came to visit, and I continue to go back and forth between DC and here a lot, is one, much larger vehicles with what are illegal by the state law, muffler add-ons. These are designed to intimidate. They do intimidate. They intimidate me. I'm afraid to get out of my car. I'm afraid my dog will get hit. I am afraid other people could get hit. And I also think that enforcing this law and maybe putting some fines to that could be a way to make some revenue that perhaps could go towards funding some of the things that people here have suggested, like some of the additional crosswalks or the lights, etc. If you want to refer to the specific code, it's Virginia Code 46.2, 1047, and 46.2-10049. The town code that also validates this, but of course, you know, it's required because it's Virginia code, is 30-32A 2J. Another thing that I wondered in this study if it happened, per Mr. Lagarde's point about the traffic coming off of Russell Road, clearly traffic has increased. And how that traffic is routed seems very important to me. With the increasing use, if not total reliance on mobile GPS, I think it's very important that the urban planner be liaising with the folks over at Google Maps, Apple Maps. I know there was some congestion, for example, with work on one of the exits, and that there's work going on now with another exit. But it could just simply be a matter of, if we know at this time traffic is a lot more intense, what can we do to work with them to maybe route, if someone is going to, say, a restaurant establishment that's further down Cummings or something else, to keep them off certain roads that are already experiencing higher traffic. Another thing I also wondered was the question that someone had about 18-wheelers and whether or not that was legal. Is that really legal in the historic district, that 18-wheeler trucks that I think, as the person shared with you all, can't actually make the turns? That they're allowed to be going down the street? Because these 18-wheelers wake me up at night, along with the people racing with these big trucks. My windows literally shake from the vibrations of these things. And in Washington, D.C., in some of the worst neighborhoods, you know, you might have what they call rough riders. This is just a different form of that. We have to think about the well-being of people who live here. This needs to be a place where people feel like they can sleep. I can't sleep here. I can't sleep with this noise. It is so far beyond anything I ever experienced or do experience in DC. And I really hope that you all will take the comments here seriously. I'm 100% behind the police, behind you all. I'm not on anyone's team whatsoever, except for just, let's do what we can do together to work on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Chief, not to put you on the spot, but to answer that question, I guess the 18-wheelers are not prohibited in any of the streets of Abingdon, is that correct?
No, short answer. Especially if they have a delivery
Yes, come on up if you would.
Someone mentioned the 18-wheelers coming down the one-way. Is that off Court Street?
No, it's off Church Street.
Off Church Street?
They run in our yard. What are those big trucks are?
Big freight trucks.
Delivery trucks?
No, they're big, they're huge trucks. Yes, they are. I watch them all the time.
Some of the 18-wheelers are quieter than the truck, the
It's not the noise, it's that they can't, what they do when they come around the big curve, they come out from Church to Valley, is that they can't make it, so when they turn, they hold up the traffic. They go through there, they have to, everybody has to stop for them to make the curves there. So,
I mean, that's a tight
and
turn,
they ride, yeah, and they run up on the sidewalk, you know, and if there is any I've almost seen them hit the cars that was parked on the other side of the street. So, they're the biggest trucks, I mean, I don't know what to call pretty big trucks.
Yes, I mean, the trucks can be through there, but they can't run over stuff.
Well, it's a narrow road anyway,
It is,
you know?
that one way is very narrow, and the vehicles will park on the side.
And they go as fast down through there as they do Valley.
I can make a note on that because it happened the other night. A lot of people want to park there on, I know we're going outside the scope of Valley, but Church is a one-way that a lot of people are taking to get to Valley. I don't think a lot of people realize that because there's just a new house and then one on on each corner of that, and then the Methodist Church. When they're taking that turn, a lot of people are parking on Church Street to go to Barter, so they're walking. They're not walking to the crosswalk at the Methodist Church and going across. They're walking this way, right, in front of the Mahaffey, real estate company, and there is no light there. It is dark. So when they turn left there, I'm afraid they're gonna really hurt someone. And the lighting on Valley, I love the low lights, and I'm not saying to put LED lights, but at a crosswalk, it's extremely dangerous. We have a lot of walkers on Valley, and I'll tell you, during the day, in the morning, I almost saw the whole Killian family taken out one day. I mean, her husband literally was like, slow down, and jerked the kids
In the
back.
school, yeah, for the school, the kids that walk through there to catch the school bus.
I don't see as many people going down the street over, that's the other one way, that's going right beside, well, actually right here, College. But they're really going down Church Street now, and they never stop at the stop sign, and they just keep on going. Yeah.
All right. Anyone else that would like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am, if you would just come on up, please. Thank you. There's people watching online, so they would like to hear you.
Just real quick, Wendy Dayton, 133 Valley Street. On your mitigations that you listed, the green, yellow, and red, I didn't see anything, and maybe I just missed it, about any kind of electronic enforcement where just snapshots are taken and bills are sent for valid, for issues?
That's not legal in Virginia.
It's not, okay.
I don't
Thank
think
you.
it is.
Okay.
You can correct me on that. Yeah, there is legislation where in school zones it is permissible. So we could, so only in a school zone. Yeah, so school zones it is permissible, so you could put that on Thompson Drive, for example, in front of the high school. But it's not permissible outside of school zone. And I believe work zones are also in that, but it's very restricted, so right as of now, unless they pass legislation soon.
Can I just stand here? Jan Hurd, 247 Valley Street Northeast. I would like to see where at every crosswalk we have some sort of pullout. Because that really, really shows you that there's something there. And pedestrians can go stand closer so that people can see them and stop. Because sometimes it's very difficult to see. And if you park too close to a crosswalk, and it's legal, that there are parking spaces close to the crosswalk, you can't always see the people coming out, and suddenly they're out. So I like that pull out, so you can't park that close.
second some of the comments also Ms. Blevins had to say. I live down at the far end, west end, towards Russell Road on Valley. There is really no business to speak of. There's a dance studio. There's really no business to speak of between Russell Road and Cummings. So that stretch really tends to be a racetrack. I can hear cars and especially trucks as they round that corner off of Russell Road revving up as they make that turn. I can hear them. It's kind of a sad statement of affairs when my evening entertainment, I like to sit on my front porch also. And I just sit there and count the cars and make an informal survey of, I can give you, Chief, the types of cars, the vehicles that are speeding, because there are clear demographics in what I've seen. The times, namely 7:30 to 9 a.m. and about 6 to 9 p.m. is where you'll find most of the speeding on that. In the evening, there is enough traffic during rush hour, so that cars do back up there at Russell Road. But in the morning, where people are going to work in the morning, or when they're coming down from the Lebanon area that way to come into town, it's really quite significant, the number of cars that are speeding there. I've counted the distance the time that it takes me to drive the block, and I can sit there and count the cars and time them, and I would estimate that it's probably, during those specific times, 1 out of 3 to 4 cars are probably going more than 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. So the narrowing of the roadway, I've lived in other districts where that has been successful in delineating that roadway. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Trish Cheney. I'm at 112 Valley Street, right in the middle. And I'd like to tell you that sometimes, in the mornings especially with rush hour, I'm sitting there getting my coffee or whatever, and just like one of those ants on the commercials, expired, expired. I'm going, too fast, too fast. So my question though was one about the future, 10 years from now maybe. Is there any thought going into a bypass of Abingdon, since we're becoming more of a bicycle walk type of thing, and making Valley and Main walkable, or even have smaller cars, go-karts, or not go-karts, but pulling golf carts, thank you. Golf carts, acceptable modes of transportation, and that have more people walking and bicycling and things like that, and having the big traffic go around. I don't know, that'd probably be massive amounts of money, but just something to think about for the future.
Thank you. Anyone else? You don't want to go home and wish you said what you wanted to say. All right, well, this is, do we have anything else before?
No, I don't know if we want to talk timing or where we go from here, just so they have an idea of, when we'll be looking at finalizing things.
Put me on the spot.
I know. I'm just thinking this goes from a presentation, taking their comments in, and then, if we're looking at somewhere in the next month or two where we'll have more of a conclusion, something we can put out for people to comment on, and then go from there.
Probably the next 4 to 6 weeks, I would anticipate having a memo that summarizes what we've done.
Okay. And we have been taking notes, so your comments will be in our minutes, and then we'll include those as well in the memo.
So did you have some?
I just had a question, and maybe he answered it, and I didn't hear it. Where can we get a copy of this report so so we can see it in detail and up close? And where, when will that be available to people?
Probably in that 4 to 6, when he says memo, it just means it's not like a 30-page report. So yeah, in 4 to 6 weeks, we'll have this all summarized, your comments, any additional suggestions, and they'll provide that to the town to review. So this is just their presentation, but they'll have these examples and images in there as well. So.
Sorry, one afterthought, Bragdar's 244 Valley Street Northeast. Whatever we do with the striping or the sidewalks, whatever, could we be consistent from one end of the valley to the other so the whole street is on the same page? So nobody gets let down. Because right now, today, from Fort down to Tanner, there is no striping. So when people, because you go from right there by the courthouse, people see that light and the road opens up. There's all of a sudden the lines go away, the courthouse goes away, and that's why everybody said their section has the greatest speeding. I agree, and I think our section has the greatest. But at least let's be consistent all the way from one end to the other.
I mean, I think the intention would be to be consistent where the width is available for the parking lanes.
Well, if you're gonna do striping, I know there's glass beads you can put in the striping, make it reflective, so that at night, as their headlights are going down there, those stripes will really light up instead of blending in the background.
I think that's the intent.
Yes.
I'm Kristen Baker, 239 Valley Street Northeast, and I just had one more question. When you were proposing those roundabouts, did you have an idea on where the location would be and how many?
We only dropped one in there, at Court. Yeah, I think the first step is to do some lower cost measures, just to see how that affects the situation, and some of the higher priced alternatives, the town would probably have to look at funding through VDOT or some other source to do any larger improvements like that.
And for these roundabouts, I'm just curious, this is something that they do in DC a lot, and I know myself, the first time I encountered it, I found it pretty confusing. I think there are a lot of folks around here that have quite a bit of muscle memory it took a while for me to adjust for the fact that there's no longer a stoplight, for example, at Russell, and I see, some people struggle, some with that. I'm not sure why that stoplight was taken out, but and it's neither here nor there. I mean, the importance is the flow of traffic and if it works. But do you think these roundabouts, would people, would they, I guess you just need to make sure there's good signage and it doesn't confuse folks.
The one roundabout you have shown there, is that Court Street? That is now, has a light at it, and it's one way. So, I don't know if that's gonna be better or worse.
It's
They
temporary.
have,
It's temporary.
Court Street from Main Street to Valley is one way, and it sounds like they're gonna continue that. I don't know.
That's Food City's intersection as well, and that could present conflict. The number of cars coming down.
All right, any further comments? I'll say what they know. So, on behalf of the town and the Historic Preservation Review Board, we thank you very much for coming out tonight. I think the large crowd attending here tonight and providing your comments is indicative that there is a serious concern and things that need to be addressed. So thank you for taking the time to be here and providing us with your input. And it was particularly helpful to have all of your personal observations of what's going on Valley Street and what these problems are. It's very enlightening and very helpful. We probably should have done this at the beginning, but of course we have our mayor, Amanda Pillion, here, and we have town council members. Wayne Austin's here. If you'd raise your hand, Wayne, I'm sure everybody knows Wayne, and of course Dwayne Anderson, and also our town manager, Mike Cochran, there in the rear. So your comments have all been heard, and we very much appreciate your participation. I think Betsy, you wanted to.
I just wanted to make one more comment, and that is perhaps we should revive our Drive 25 in Old Abingdon campaign. I know some of you will remember that. Those of us who live in the district did that, 25 years ago?
The bumper stickers.
But the bumper stickers, and we had this, there's nothing new under the sun, I guess, but that campaign worked, so maybe this will work too. I'm sure it will work. Yeah.
Okay, then I guess we are ready for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
And Mr. Giesler?
Aye. Thank you very much.